The International Finance Corporation has said, sharing arrangements are a product of political processes, power dynamics, and economic and social context. Although this series is about a community negotiating with a company, there's simply no avoiding the role of the government. Politics matter, government matters. So the government may well seek involvement in any negotiation, and often it'll try to influence proceedings. So it's necessary to figure out how to navigate the complicated, tricky, and sometimes dangerous waters of government relations. It's highly individual from place to place. In many circumstances, it will take a lot of thought and insight and strategy. There are power politics and development politics. Before anything gets to the community, there are already established relationships between the government, the company, and probably others, such as investors or special interests, and so on. The government can have different priorities that it thinks are at least or even more important than community agreements as well. On the other hand, this negotiation is between you and the company. The government may wish to insert itself, and the company may want to bring the government in as an ally or to use the government to thwart you, but you have legitimate status too. Although refusal to negotiate can be completely justified, in seeking to negotiate, you signal that you may want to develop some kind of basically positive relationship, which can be better for everyone with a legitimate interest. So in many ways, a successful community agreement can actually ease and streamline the entire project, a positive for the government. Here are 5 issues to address. What is the political geography? Certain political and policy practices will limit company-community negotiations or at least make them more difficult. A lot of this you probably already know. What kind of political system do you live in? It's much harder to negotiate in an autocracy than a real democracy. How does the working national, regional, or local government feel about and treat your group? What's the history there? Does the government take sides, or does it act as a balancing force between you and the company? Is rule of law the norm, and how do the legal systems and courts operate? Security issues. Do security forces pose a risk? An especially important question: what roles do unelected elites play in your country? People with money or privilege or other status. Not only local power brokers and the wealthy, but also those who can formulate policy or shape investment or business dealings at the national level. How will they view and treat such negotiations? The company itself, is it from your own country, a small or large international company, or a partnership of some sort? Companies from the same country may take a different and often more entitled view of negotiating with a community than an international one. However, sometimes international companies bring with them certain assumptions that are based on their own culture or other experiences. Sometimes they're led to believe certain things by those who have had their own agendas. And sometimes they just don't care. They just want things to get done easily and quickly as possible. How strong and sophisticated are local traditional but unwritten rules, and can a good case be made for their importance and inclusion in the process? Next, what kind of obstacles do you face? What are the lurking unspoken hindrances? Corruption, cronyism, and patronage? It's not always a game ender, but you will have to deal with it. Politicians at all levels will try to use this project for their own political agendas. An ugly history between the government and the local community. The government may consider alternative priorities, such as foreign direct investment, of higher importance than community agreements. Difficulties with implementation and regulation of policies, especially at the local level. Do local bureaucrats have the training, motivation, and oversight to do their job effectively? Who are the true owners of the company involved? Sometimes unsavory individuals use shell companies to hide their identities, which can make negotiations much more difficult. Next, look to your own house. Are you using your objections to this project as a proxy for something else? Sometimes it happens. Is it a way to retaliate at the government for other events? To gain political leverage or advantage? For use for a political agenda of your own? This, of course, will strengthen the government's resolve, and it can make the process a contest of a very different sort that will weaken the legitimacy of your claims. Ask yourself, what kind of leverage do you have? Can you use the web of international investment law, international human rights, domestic law, and so forth to support your efforts, including voluntary principles on security and human rights, which are guidelines for acceptable security forces behavior? Is there historical control of the area by your group, or the possibility of a valid claim or legal recognition? If a competent and public environmental and social impact assessment has been done by experienced and neutral professionals, it can help your perspectives and hold status with the government. Can you change how the government thinks about the value or the development of the resource? Are there alternative narratives you can develop, such as, you negotiate without affecting their contract and everybody is happy? Are there alternative economic options, perhaps? Who are your supporters and how can they help you? And can you, if necessary, invoke media attention? So, what are some possible strategies? There's confrontation. People in both Africa and Latin America have said the same thing repeatedly. Unless we protest or block the road, no one listens to us. Protests and confrontation do get attention, and they can be successful, but they can backfire in an autocratic government. Visually map out the connections on paper and explain to yourself how they connect to each other. This helps clarify important linkages and puts everyone on the same page. Analyze the company for a strategy to see if it's possible to create an alliance with them towards negotiation. It's possible that some companies may want to work with you to create consent and could let the government know this. Visibility. Outsiders looking at the situation can sometimes help apply pressure to certain situations. Can you explain your position and cause in a way that lets the general public understand and sympathize with your position? Find out who are the ultimate beneficiaries of the project. Sometimes there are those who use slippery means to get what they want. Working with other organizations dedicated to transparency can help. There is the example of 2 cases in China, both involved in the building of dams, which can offer a useful idea. One community protested, but the dam was built anyway. The other community made an issue of the historical and cultural value of the site and how it would be destroyed by the dam. It developed other alternative economic possibilities, and the dam was stopped. Another option the land rights group Namati suggests is to seek ways, if possible, to bring the government into the process for you, to make an ally of them. Local and regional leaders have a vested interest in making things work successfully in their area. Good ones will want you to succeed. In this, you stand a better chance if you have already dealt with many of the obstacles facing you, like border problems. So before approaching the government, you should, 1, look into working with neighboring groups and communities to establish mutually acceptable community boundaries, maps, bylaws, and so forth, to set the stage. 2nd, be politically and strategically smart about whom you work with and how you start with them. 3rd, try to engage with leaders in government as early as possible, or they could make trouble and the process may be illegal. 4th, try for inclusion to get them to give ideas on how you can get a better deal or a relationship with the company or other sections of the government. 5th, Include them in celebrations and milestones or success in the project to make them feel honored and respected. And sixth, if they are respected and can leave politics out of it, have them help you resolve disputes. Last points to remember and include: addressing corruption and cronyism is always difficult. Make sure the government understands that if your group or community does work out a better deal with the company, it helps them look good. It strengthens their public support and improves development for the entire country.